Gospel is a very interesting story. It might be long, but it is very moving. But I was looking at what lines struck me. And as you see there, I was impressed by this line somehow remained in my mind. First lines, Jesus walking by their side. And so I was asking myself, in today's time, how can we make Jesus walk by our side? And the next line that somehow struck me is, they were talking about all that had happened. These two were talking full of enthusiasm and really sharing with each other about the things that happened. And I was checking, what do we mean by talking about all that had happened? And 3 points came out. Mutual conversation, reviewing the process, make sense of the events. And number 2, there was shared experiences, shared personal experiences. These 3 points perhaps are the points that can make Jesus walk by our side today. Of course, we really want Jesus to walk by our side, especially when we are in trouble. And when we are in trouble and Jesus is by our side, then trouble will not be difficult anymore. It will be easy to handle. But how can we make Jesus walk by our side? Allow me to share my reflections on these 3 points that can hopefully make Jesus walk by our side. So talking about what had happened, what is the first thing when we have to talk about events? The first thing is there must be mutual conversation, communication, willingness to connect with the other or the others. And of course, the question we ask ourselves, are we willing to communicate? Am I willing to communicate? There might be valid reasons why I cannot communicate. Then let us try to identify them. Sometimes there is trouble between the two persons and somebody says, you talk to him. It is true, I would agree. Sometimes no point of talking. Because every time we talk, always this way. He is that level and you are that level. When that comes in a relationship, what do you do? Big question. There is no 1, 2, 3 principle. At the end, maybe you start with praying for the other. And not only praying for the other, also praying for yourself, that you may know how to handle that situation. In a group, we try to animate. And then there are really times that you don't like. You don't like the other group, so noisy, and the other group, so quiet. And also, you are also quiet because there is something that you are not satisfied with how things are. Yeah, sometimes it's better to be quiet because if you talk, you might talk wrongly. Maybe at that time, your mind might not be in the right disposition. You may not be in the mood. Then you say something, it will just give a mistake, or it will destroy the environment, the situation, and it's very difficult to remedy. But of course, in that situation, the question I ask myself is, have I prayed for the other party? That is a question I have to remind myself. Yes, I need to pray for the other party. I may not be able to talk at that point, at this point, because I feel that it has no point. But still I ask myself, have I prayed for the other? That I have to do something, to pray for the other. That is difficult to connect, difficult to communicate. And secondly, sometimes when you don't feel good, what happens to your face? course, your forehead starts to wrinkle a bit, and your face starts to become sour. Do you smile? Do you exert effort to smile, even if deep inside you don't feel good? So, examining myself, these are two things that I have to see. I don't know how is your situation. One is I have to learn to pray for the others. That is difficult to communicate. And secondly, I must try to consciously smile even if I don't like the situation. Because we need to connect. If we cannot connect, then we cannot talk about the things, and we cannot make Jesus walk by our side today. The other point to make Jesus walk by our side today is review, make sense of the past events, and connect them with one's Christian faith. Going deeper in this reflection, do I see the hand of God in the ordinary events of my life? And I will still go further. Am I very good in separating my faith from my business? It's like, okay, I go to church, I pray. I go back home, then I continue to be unfair. I continue to be indifferent. This is another difficult thing. If communication is very difficult, this is another difficult thing. If we always separate, this is prayer, this is connecting with them, here I do this, there that's another business. I need to cheat here because very important for my business, which is not really good, right? So we have to see how to make our faith really connect with our day-to-day business. It's true, it can be very difficult, but just try a little. Maybe that is where we have to ask the Holy Spirit to guide us. Please help me little by little apply my faith in my day-to-day dealings with the people. So while we need to communicate, we also need to deal with people in a Christian way. And as I said, this is very difficult. But this is how we can let Jesus walk by our side today. Someday, of course, it cannot happen right away tomorrow. But hopefully, it will happen soon in our life, at least before we leave this world. We can truly make our faith one, not only in the church, but also when we deal with people in our business. As I said, this is not easy. This is a big challenge. The second point of talking about what had happened so that Jesus may come is share what we experience. We cannot share only from our head. Because if we share a personal experience, nobody can contradict. And in the Eucharist, we can truly have a personal encounter, personal experience of Jesus. If we don't have a personal experience with Jesus, then we have nothing to share. When we have a personal experience of Jesus, also Jesus Himself will transform us. Dear brothers and sisters, reflecting on these few lines, trying to make Jesus walk by our side today, just remember these 3 points. Try our best to connect with people. Try to bring one's faith to our daily dealings and business with people. Try to close the gap of dichotomy, they say. Faith in the church, different from our ways when we go out of the church. It must be connected. Our faith must show itself in our day-to-day transactions, business, work in the office, or in the school. And thirdly, let us bring ourselves to the Eucharist. So thank you for coming here in this Mass. You are bringing yourself to this Eucharist. But there are some people who have no time to come for Mass on Sunday. We remind them, we don't fight over them, but if only they can bring themselves to the Eucharist. And of course, when we are inside the Eucharist, hopefully our mind is also here. Because we can also be here in body, but our mind is somewhere. So bring ourselves to the Eucharist. Experience Christ, and most importantly, allow Christ to transform us. In this way, Jesus can truly walk by our side today.